Welcome to the MSP Corner podcast. Before we kick off our show, we would like to share what our main objective is at the MSP Corner. Our main goal is to help CEOs build profitable and self-sustainable IT service firms. We are not just providing tools for IT firms, we will be sitting in meetings with you to ensure your IT firm stays on track. The first area we are focused on, strategic sales. IT firms are stuck selling technology or IT support. We will provide you with the blueprint so you position your firm as an added value to your prospects. We will have framework on how to sell value so you influence the prospect into selecting your firm. The second area we see many IT firms struggle in is marketing. 90+% of businesses rely on antiquated marketing methods. The most popular choice, word of mouth. We have proven methods on how to attract the ideal prospect. Our framework will include how to become the online authority and be the business influencer for an industry. The third component to our package, scaling. IT firms walk away from opportunities because they lack the bandwidth or skill set to scale. We have lined up reputable businesses so our members can hire on-demand resources that will allow them to scale their business. The fourth area we will offer help in, selecting the right tools. In order to deliver value, you need the right tech stack. Our platform will offer information on products that are the ideal choice for MSPs. The fifth area we will offer help in is with documentation. Templates are a critical component when building an MSP. We will have contracts, proposals, SOWs, collateral, and much more in the template section. You will have every document you need to start up your managed IT service business. Thank you for tuning in. Let's go to our next podcast. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining podcast show number 9. My name is Fernando Leon, and I am your host today, and I'm joined by my co-host, Gregory Morawiecz. And today's topic, we're going to dive in on how a SOC can increase your MRR. And for those that are not familiar with the MRR acronym, it's monthly reoccurring revenue. So let's kick this show off. And Gregory, let's start off with the value behind the SOC, right? I mean, you and I are meeting with clients every week discussing this, why they need to implement a SOC and the many reasons behind it. But what's the value, would you say? Because I'm going to have my own version of the value, but what do you say is the value behind a SOC?
Well, you don't have to start with the SOC per se. You can have an approach to the SOC. That could be your first indicator. Like if you do security audits, you don't necessarily need a SOC to do security audits. So you can increase your revenue just by going towards the SOC model. But once you get there, it's going to cost a lot of money to maintain it. So that's why we suggest you outsource your SOC to begin with, just to start with. So you can start with like security audit, security analysis, security item remediation. You can even sit in on, security audits and stuff like that as part of your service offering. But once you get to the land of the SOC, you definitely need to have some sort of crew or, your security operations center. You need tools. You need staff, you need managers, you need, a way to triage things. So it has a lot of value, but you can also provide a lot of value by going towards the SOC model.
So I get that. It's like baby steps, right? I mean, you approach your clients, or at least, start off with baby steps with one client. At least approach them and say, hey, you know what? I've been reading about the amount of breaches occurring. Security is a constant, hackers are a constant threat. This is a conversation you can be having with the CEO. And I guess you would say, you're right, a security audit or an analysis is a great start because you can it's like, taking baby steps with a lot of these clients, because if you go in guns a-blazing with a SOC proposal and saying, look at all these layers we're going to add, it can be off-putting. I could see that. I can see that, because even though you go in with, oh, look at all the value we provide with the SOC, it still can be, it can give our guests, many clients, could leave a bad taste in their mouth, and you don't want to do that. And I see that, because
Well, you know what
it's,
happens to us hundreds of times in a row. Someone will
yes,
say, okay, you want to provide my dentist office of 5 people, SOC services or whatever. Just as an example, I don't know if dental offices need SOC services. What they're going to ask you right away is, how many other dental offices have you provided SOC services for? And if you can't come up with like 4 or 5 case studies and 4 or 5 stories or references, you might not get the business. But if you start small and you do endpoint detection for 5 dentist offices, you can then use those as like a jump off point and say, yeah, look, I work with other dental offices. I've done their security. Moving towards the SOC, product is not going to be as hard or as much of a stretch for you to say that you can deal with, if you definitely work your way up the ladder.
sure, sure. And one of those conversations, being the IT strategist, you got to also, or if you're the IT in charge, if you're the individual in charge of IT, you definitely should be recommending EDR or XDR and a disaster recovery plan, right? Because let's just hypothetically say a dentist's office network gets hacked and they're held hostage. Would the following steps be re-imaging all the machines, re-imaging whatever cloud services are in place, and restoring backup and following a workflow to get them back online? So backup is critical to this process, would you say? Because then, once, if that does occur, you can then, right, pitch them the SOC service, because yeah, you're gonna provide them with many more layers of security. But would you say that's the bare minimum for a dental office, an EDR or XDR and a backup solution that allows you to restore data in the event of someone does get hacked?
Yeah, like if you had a dentist office and it was 5 users and you gave them all XDR, EDR, they should be protected, because that's the next generation of antivirus. They should be protected from antivirus, anti-malware. Now, if they did something like a 0-day attack where they didn't have like proper defense, or one of their users got tricked in a phishing call to turn off their antivirus module or something like that happened, where there was a catastrophic event where the EDR or the XDR didn't help them, then yes, if they don't have backup, they're completely destroyed. So yeah, backup is your failover for your XDR, EDR, and also you want to diversify your backup so that it's not just one backup done once. You want to have multiple backups, and you want to store those backups in multiple different locations, which could be in your house, at a different office location. You can move backups from one office location to another to keep them safe, or you can also use the cloud as a way of storing backups. So you don't want to have a single point of failure with your backups. And then we can dive deeper into the other security measures you can take that are a complementary. But you're right. If you don't have XDR, and if you don't have XDR at all, you're going to have backup, because
Yeah.
if your stuff gets compromised, you're going to need to restore it from backup, because it can't be reclaimed.
Those are some great tips. No, I agree. I agree. Now, my next thoughts, or my next question, is really going to depend on several various factors when recommending a security stack, because it depends on the size. Do they have remote users? Is it a regulated industry? But what would be your recommendation when it comes to a security stack? Let's say a medical office that has, let's say, 100 end users. You have remote users, and you have Also, you have subcontractors that come in and out, accessing the network. You're going to have also an open Wi-Fi for guests to log into, so they can get internet access, if that's even an option for medical offices these days. But are you going to be recommending, after let's say you do a security audit, they got the perimeter is secure, you got firewalls, it's configured, and they have VLANs that are protecting it from, somebody accessing it from a Wi-Fi as a guest. So from a layered perspective on the software side or the SaaS side, and for traveling people, let's say people travel, right? You got people taking computers home with them, they work remotely. What is what is your security stack going to be? What would you be recommending as far as the security stack? Because a medical office that is required to be HIPAA compliant. I'm going to assume you're going to need to have a really tight security protocol and security tools in place. Would you say?
Yeah. So we've already spoken about XDR and backup. So those, we'll assume those are in place. You mentioned that they have a secure Wi-Fi, next generation firewall. So those are great pieces of equipment. They're VLANing, they're protecting their networks from one another, from possible intrusion. Maybe they have DMZs on their firewall. That's all great. The next step is to get them two-factor authentication, like Duo or Microsoft or something, or Okta or whatever. They want to use two-factor authentication. So that's the next animal that you must have. Then you want to move on and get encryption. Encryption at the laptop level, encryption at the data moving level, encryption of your storage, encryption of your backups. So you want to have to encrypt everything and have encryption running in your background. You mentioned that they were having people traveling, which means you want to get some sort of form of MDM, mobile device management, which would allow you to either encrypt something, brick it, which means like make it non-functional, or wipe it, where you can just wipe all the data from the drive and no one can use it anymore. In an extreme case, you can build what's called a VDI, virtual desktop, where you could have people logging in remotely to this virtual desktop, which means that no matter what happens to their equipment in the field, the virtual desktop doesn't get, it's somewhere else in the cloud, so it can't be stolen, so you're safe there. So those are the top three that I would do after what we talked about.
Excellent. Wow, that's some great feedback. Appreciate that. Now for the guys that are out there, because we have some very ambitious people, ambitious CEOs, energetic. I mean, these guys are super bright, and they're probably considering building a SOC, right? Do you recommend building an in-house or outsourcing that portion? Like, when is it that you come to a point and you're like, okay, I should keep it in-house or I should outsource? When does somebody reach that point? And the ongoing management, I'm sure, it can be a bit challenging. So do you recommend building an in-house or outsourcing in certain stages of your IT firm?
I recommend outsourcing it to begin with, just to see what you're getting yourself into. You can start cutting pieces of the outsourced component off and putting it under your purview. An example would be that you need to have a manager. So you could start off with a SOC manager who just basically managed the outsourced provider. But that person is going to consume dollars and time and wage, and they're going to manage your environment. So I would start there. So if you can't even afford like somebody who's going to cost $100,000 or $80,000 to $100,000 a year to be your SOC manager, or maybe even more as inflation goes up and so on. If you can't afford that, then it's going to be a moot point. And how much business does it take to get a SOC manager? It takes a lot. 100 grand. I mean, that's a lot of accounts. That's a ton of 10-person accounts. If you're making
Yep.
$1,000 profit off each 10-person account or 20-person account, you're going to talking about 100 of those customers. So it doesn't really. That's just to break even on your manager. So yeah, wow, it's painful, right? That's a big number. And say you have a $50,000 a month account, or $30,000 or $20,000 a month account. Well, now your SOC manager is still costing you 10 of that. So you have 40. Now you decide that you're starting to hire team staff. Each of those guys you have to staff it 24/7 to be in a SOC. So
Yep.
you have to have 3 8-hour shifts. That's 3 people 7 days a week.
Yep.
That can be like another $120,000 or $150,000 between the three of them at 50 each. So that's $250,000 a year for your SOC. Do you have an account that makes you that much money? I don't know.
Well, you haven't even hit on the fees for the licenses, right?
No, I haven't.
And the
I'm just saying
rent.
staff.
Yeah. No, I get it. I know. I'm familiar with all the numbers. So, but I'd really like to see, these guys have goals, right? They're like, okay, once I get to a certain goal, I can bring this in house, and providing those type of figures really brings some good hard data to these guys that are considering building it in house, because it can be, you need to have the right people, you need to be trained, you need to have the right tools, and I get it. Now, what would you say is the biggest challenge, let's say when you're managing, because you manage the 24/7 SOC, what do you say is one of the biggest challenges with when managing a 24/7 SOC?
Well, one of the biggest challenges is that when a problem comes in that no one's ever seen before, you have to have somebody like an authority who can tell everyone how to react to it. Like if you have a impossible login, that's not hard to figure out, right? You have an
Yep.
impossible login where a person is logging into their computer from San Diego, and they're logging into their computer from Belarus. Kind of hard to do that and to be in two places at once. So you're saying, okay, impossible login. This means that maybe somebody's hacked my password, and you can deal with that on its own. But now ransomware is on Judy's computer. You're like, well, how did it get there? What did Judy do? Did Judy do anything? What's going on? Did she open an email? Did she go to a website? Did she do nothing? Did someone else use her computer? Did someone do so? You got to do cause analysis. You got to do kind of like you got to do forensic analysis of what occurred. That could be completely complicated if you're offering that as a service. Because people are going to want to know. They're like, how did Judy get this virus?
Yep.
You gotta come up with a solution. And if you just have somebody who knows how to press buttons and not think independently, you're gonna fail.
So you're going to reverse engineer the hack. Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely.
And that takes time.
It's called cause analysis. It takes time,
Okay.
effort, and intelligence.
And would you say that's an added fee besides delivering the SOC?
Well, I'll tell you, it is something you have to be wary of, because if you go to the mechanic and he tells you, well, you have a flat tire, the first thing you're going to ask him and expect from him is to tell you how it happened. Even though he doesn't drive your car, he doesn't know. He may just take an educated guess, but if it's just human nature. People want to know why something happened. So if you don't offer it as a service, you got to really make that clear to your customer in the beginning. You're going to go, look, if you get a virus, we're just going to clean it up. We're not going to spend the 16 to 20 hours that it could possibly take trying to figure out how it happened, that if it's not evident. If it doesn't say in our logs, look, Judy clicked on www.wellsfargos.com instead of wellfargo.com when she clicked on it, it's just going to be like a laborious activity to try to figure out what was going on. So yeah, you got to be really careful in how you position yourself with cause analysis.
Gotcha. Well, those are some great tips there. But now, these guys, they want to start generating revenue, right? And like this title of the show is how can you increase your MRR? Well, you're going to have to start qualifying, I guess, internal opportunities, right? And what I mean by internal is you have these IT firms are currently providing IT support to small, medium, and large size organizations. And they need to start qualifying opportunities because right now they're stepping away from money, right? They're leaving money on the table. They don't even know it. So would you say that they need to have a carefully planned process and sales process to get in front of, a small firm is going to be a lot easier than a large firm, but would you say that each business needs to have a unique approach? And what should they do besides calling up the CEO and saying, "Hey, I want to meet with you"? But what would you suggest they can do from a database standpoint and look at a client and say, "Oh, this firm's 20 people. Their inventory, what they have in place is EDR, and that's it. And they're a medical office." What process or what path should they take to start qualifying their current opportunities? Because they're walking away from money if they're not offering their clients a SOC today, or at least some layers of security such as MDM, MFA, or dual multi-factor authentication, EDR or XDR. You also have what is it? Dark web services, right? Your email can be on the dark web, and you have your passwords have been compromised. And then there's the last one, email protection, such as spam protection and email archiving, and making sure that all their emails are backed up. I mean, there's so many things that can be offered, and and so go ahead. I've been talking too much, but what process would you take to start qualifying these opportunities?
Well, the first thing you need to do is turn to your marketing sales vice president like yourself and say, I need to create a package. I need to create a can of goodies, right? You can't go into a person and be like, oh yeah, we offer security services. We do MDM, we do XDR, we do SOC services, we do blah 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 blah. It's just like overwhelming these people. It overwhelms any non technical person. So you want to can up some solutions. Now, one of the beginning of the top of the can can be a security audit. Those are easy to do. They're cheap. They get you good money, and then they reveal all the things that need to be done. In the security audit, you want to be able to can out what you can do. So XDR, SIM, dark web search, whatever, can it up, say, here's our offering. Here's what we suggest you do in, phase one, and then have a can called phase one. These are the 4 basic entry-level cybersecurity must-haves for any small business. The small business cybersecurity level 1 package. People can get that. People can relate to that and say, okay, level 1, I want level 1. Then you got to say to them, look, as part of we got level 1 done, everything is done. Then you approach me and you say, okay, like level 2, you have a PCI environment, you have a HIPAA environment, you have a DoD or whatever environment. You need to move to level 2 right after we get to level 1. Did we miss anything when we did level 1? No. We got all the basic stuff we needed, like 2-factor encryption, backup, XDR. Well, everything we talked about, probably level 1. Level 2 is going to be like phishing school, compliance monitoring, SIM, SOC, dark web scanning, email spam protection, that kind of thing. You're going to want to build a secondary package and have your sales guy price it out per user as an add-on to your existing services. You just really want to make it as easy for them to make the decision as possible. You don't want to go product by product to them and go, do you want a secure VPN, remote VPN clientless VPN or a passwordless system or whatever. You don't want to throw these pitches at them one at a time. You want to package up something in like series of 1, 2, or 3 or 4, where you have like a level 1 business package. That's the way to go.
Gotcha. Well, you said something interesting regarding the security audit. Do you use special software to do a scan of what's in place? And if the firewall's been configured correctly, if and if EDR exists on the network, is there something specific that you use to determine, okay, these are where this is where we talk about this all the time, gaps. This is where the gaps are. Do you use anything specific to create a security analysis that you can then turn into a proposal? Because let's just say, hey, you know what? You don't have a firewall, right? So you can at least go directly to the CFO and say, look, I did a security analysis. You don't have a firewall. You are completely open to the network. Here is my proposal for a sonic firewall. It's going to take me 4 hours to configure it, and this is how much one costs an enterprise level, and it comes with VPN or whatever, right? And then boom, you've got a quick sale for a firewall. And go back to my original question. Do you use anything specific to determine gaps?
Well, you mentioned gaps, and you mentioned one-offs and scopes of work, and you didn't kind of tie it to the reason that we're here is we want to increase your MRR. Building a firewall solution for someone, building a IDS or IPS solution for somebody usually doesn't increase their MRR, because what it does is it creates a one-time event, like putting in a firewall or modifying their VLANs or buying them a wireless with advanced encryption or upgrading their Windows Home Edition to Pro so they get encryption. Yes, you want to do those things, but they're not going to increase your MRR. The packages that I discussed earlier, where you're selling a grouping of SaaS products, are going to do that. Do you need a special tool in order to identify if they have those SaaS products? Probably not. You could just figure it out by doing an audit of like an inventory. And ask questions to the end customer. Do you have two-factor authentication? Very little equipment or software products are going to tell you if a person has two-factor. They're going to need to tell you. You're not really going to be able to detect that with a tool. Some tool maybe can do it, but those are going to be expensive enterprise level tools that are not going to work for small or medium-sized businesses very well without costing like $18,000, $20,000, $30,000 for the scanner. So I wouldn't do that. I would just ask the questions. Do you have endpoint protection? Do you have backup? Do you have encryption? Do you have two-factor? Ask the questions. If they say no, just mark it on your checklist. These things are a must-have for security level 1, a package level 1. You need to break it out into a package. If you don't do that and you try to sell it one at a time, you will fail.
Well, you touched on something, and you're right. The title of the show, we're sticking to the main reason for the show is to how can you increase your MRR. But my point though was to originally go back to the comment you said about baby steps. And I'm going to assume, and correct me if I'm wrong, as the IT department or the MSP, or you're the IT resource this client relies on, right? You're their IT resource guy. You're the one that should have an inventory of all their licenses. You should track their licenses, when they need to be renewed, warranty licenses on hardware, when the support contract expires. Wouldn't you say that a lot of this information you should know, right? Don't you think the IT firm should know all of this? They should say, okay, now that since I own this account, this firm does not have MFA or some type of multi-factor authentication. They also don't have encryption or email spam protection. So they should have an approach. Or first off, is it safe for me to assume that you guys should know all of that?
Yes and no. If you're just starting out with a customer and you want to bundle this security analysis in with your initial discovery, then you're not going to know everything. But if they're already an established customer that you've had for a long time, yeah, you absolutely should. You actually should know the answers to these questions. But if like I said, if it's part of your first time with this customer, then definitely you're gonna discover this as you go. So yeah, yes and no. But for the most part, yes. If it's your existing customer, you should have known all these anyway, and you could just skip right ahead to the packages where you just
Yep.
show them a package and say, here's what you need to do next. Security, your company name, security package level 1.
Yep. Yep. And some of these guys that are listening in or are listening to this conversation, they're saying, well, I don't have the bandwidth or the skill set or I just have a handful of clients and two of them will be interested, right? They could say they're still leaving money on the table because there are white label partners out there that can provide a SOC solution. And we already had a guest that provides this type of solution for firms that need to that require a 24/7 SOC. So there's no excuse. There's no excuse for making more money. And there's no excuse for not approaching their client for offering a SOC. So these guys, I think a lot of it has to do with just educating them, getting them.
Well, the excuse would be that you as a business owner, right? You're a small business owner. You're everything to your company. You're maybe the CEO. You're a technician. You're the knock manager. You're the help desk manager. You have one of the customers where you go visit them and do services to them once in a while. And now Fernando's saying you're saying take on a whole nother hat, sock, because you got to build it up, right? Otherwise, you got to hire that guy, and that guy's going to be expensive. So while you are right, you have to leave a little room on your in your brain to be the SOC manager now, or else, yeah, you can leave that money on the table because you just might not have the bandwidth to do it, but you can hire a SOC, a white label SOC, and they can take a lot of the burden off, but not all of it. You're ultimately responsible for managing the accounts that the SOC works for and kind of doing some sort of audit of their work every week. So it will take a little brain space for you, but like you said, white label is the way to go. Managing that white label group is going to take some juice. So don't think it's going to just be fire and forget where you hire this group and you're like, well, why aren't they managing my accounts? Why aren't they meeting with my customers? Why aren't they recommending things that need to be done? Because they're trying to save money too. They're trying to give you a tight service, and a tight service means that they're not going to just spend oodles and oodles of time that they don't have trying to manage your accounts. They're just not going to do it.
Yeah, yeah, no, I get it. Well, that is really the end of the show. I've those are all my questions. You've hit on every point that I wanted to discuss. Do you have any final thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, there, you know, there are white label providers out there. You just really have to pick one that's going to make sense for you. There are a lot of offshore groups that think they can do this. They slap this on to the end of their help desk, and they really don't have any clue about what they're doing. They might have one or two gigantic customers that have asked them to do some SOC services, and they think now that they can offer SOC services as part of their portfolio, but they really don't have a lot of experience, and it's going to cost you a lot of it's going to cost you customers really to
Yeah,
learn how to do it. So don't think this is all going to be a smooth sailing. It's going to be a bumpy road for a little bit until you find the right partner.
right, right. Well, I appreciate you sharing your final thoughts. I've got nothing else, so we're going to end this show. And thanks for listening. Greg, thanks again for joining me today. And don't forget, everybody, to sign up to be a member on the MSP Corner You can go to www.mspcorner.com. Please share our link with a CEO who will find our information beneficial to their business. All right, guys, thanks again. Have a great night. Thank you for listening, and don't forget to sign up to be a member on www.mspcorner.com. Please share our link with a CEO who will find our information beneficial to their business. Have an awesome day.